There's an old saying that says, some people are so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good. Well, I think probably that's true of some people. My experience is that most people, most Christians that I know in the world today are so earthly minded, they're almost no heavenly good. I don't want to be one of those, and you don't either. Last time we looked at our home. The Apostle John draws word pictures of things that are impossible to describe well. They're so far out of our normal experience and our field of vision and understanding. He uses word pictures that are inadequate to describe the reality that he saw. And yet those word pictures, as inadequate as they are, I'm convinced, are huge and powerful. I think it's in our best interest. Every Christian would be well served, I'll just put it that way, to review this little picture postcard of our true home. Because if we don't, if we lose sight of our true home, we'll get sucked into a false belief that this is it. Whatever you got, whatever you see, wherever you are, that's it. It's not it. Well, okay. And John's picture of heaven, our true home, should be very motivating for every believer. And it is, but we don't often enough focus on it. So I have no regrets that in thinking about how godliness, this is from 1 Timothy 4, verse 8, physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. In verse 9, he says, this is a trustworthy saying that deserves full acceptance. In other words, hey, there's a whole lot of craziness out there. This is not crazy. It's trustworthy because it's for real. And he says, what is the trustworthy statement? Well, he doesn't go on to describe it. He goes on to talk about his motivation for serving. So it must be the idea that physical training is of some value, but godliness has value in all things, for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come. That's trustworthy statement. Don't let anybody deceive you into thinking that what you do here, the here and now, that's it. No, it's not. Now, the here and now is all I am given in this life, right? I have a past, but I can't go back in it. I can reflect on it. I can actually also reflect on the future, but I can't control. All I can do is set myself up to responsibly steward this here and now, so that in the future I can continue to steward the here and now. But the true trustworthy statement is, this world is not my home. I'm just passing through. And if I do not somehow train myself to be godly, as Paul urged Timothy, one of the big things is there are things about the here and now that won't come into focus well. And beyond that, think about this. My training toward godliness here and now sets me up so that, because he said that it has great value for now, and it has great value for the life to come. What's the value of godliness in the life to come? Here's what I think. Because remember when we looked in Revelation 21 and 22, in chapter 21, John writes that nothing short of godliness and righteousness will be present in heaven. Well, here's what I think. I think my training for godliness in the here and now is so that I'll be, what's the word I would use? How would I describe? I just think now is a rehearsal for then. And it's not like I get godly so I can go to heaven. No. I train myself to become righteous, or to be godly here and now. And one of the benefits is when I get home to heaven, I already have this built into me through the training that I do in the here and now. If I don't train myself to be godly now, I'm cheating myself, both in this life, and I wonder, will I, I just think it's like, well, it's all extra biblical. It's all just my opinion, so it doesn't matter that much. But I do know that one of our functions in heaven, one of our activities in heaven, according to scriptures, we will praise and serve the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. And doing that here is really just dress rehearsal for doing that there. Okay. A trustworthy saying that deserves full acceptance. That is why we labor and strive, because we put our hope in the living God, who is the Savior of all people, and especially of those who believe. Now, there's some interesting and even problematic things here, but this is why we labor and strive. Paul is a great example of somebody who didn't just get his ticket punched and sit back in the beach chair and sip on a drink until Jesus came back. He knocked off his horse on the road to Damascus. He spends 3 days in blindness. Ananias comes, prays for and with him, baptizes him, and his sins are washed away. I'm good. This is great. No. He spent his life from that point forward in a similar way as he had previously. I mean, he was a driven dude. But what he was driven toward and for and by radically changed. That's what he's talking about here. That's why we labor and strive. I think sometimes in our culture, because labor, we don't labor like our forebears did, right? I mean, now some people do still. I mean, there are people who still chop wood to heat their house, who have to, and they go out and find it in the forest, cut it down, drag it home, cut it up, chop it up, and burn it in their fireplace or their stove. Yeah, there's still people that have to go hunt for game to put meat on the table. There are still those, but if you live in a city, like I live in a city, nope. What do I have to labor and strive about? Well, I do have to mow my lawn. Yeah. Well, I do work. Well, yeah, we do. And there are some people who do physical and physically taxing labor. I get that. But to labor and strive, as Paul describes it here, has its context in advancing God's kingdom or stewarding my role in God's kingdom. It requires labor, and to strive means effort. I don't think it's a sin that we live in a culture, in a world, in a society that has done much to eliminate the need to strive. Right? I mean, we have more conveniences. I think about my grandparents. Now, by the time, they were retired and old, they had lots of conveniences available to them. They didn't have a mobile phone, but they did have color TV. And although they never had a dishwasher, dishwashers were available widely. Okay, so, got automobiles that we no longer travel at the speed of camel. We travel at whatever the speed limit is. Our lives are quite convenient. And sometimes when the faith life, this life of stewarding God's grace and our role in His kingdom, gets difficult, we don't know what to do about it. Because our lives are, some of our lives, for some people, much of their lives, is built around the effort to minimize struggle, to minimize adversity. I don't think it's wrong to make good choices so that we don't have adversity needlessly. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a kind of a snowflakey kind of approach to life, that things shouldn't be hard. Well, yeah, it's life, and things are going to be hard. And Paul even says, we have to, and I think he's talking about directly about himself and Timothy, but I also think by extension, he's giving us a little insight into our lives as well. We will have to labor and strive. Now, the key is, what is the fuel and the motivation, the reason that we strive and labor? All right. He says, this is why we labor and strive. Well, the reason is because of this training in godliness that holds value in this life and the life to come. Don't mistake that for saying you got to work really hard so God will love you. No. We work really hard because He loves us. That's why we labor and strive, because we have put our hope in the living God. We have not put our hope in our labor, in our striving. We have not put our hope in our effort. But we do make effort, but that's not where our hope is. Where's our hope? Our hope is in the living God. Well, I don't have time to break it down, but I will say when we get back together, I want us to think about hope and about our living God. Well, until then, keep striving, keep laboring for all the right reasons. I'll see you next time on Soul Care with Stevie Boy.